I'm going to try and just do this one a little more relaxed than the last one. You were experiencing data that I was sharing with you. And you were experiencing what I was experiencing at the moment I was experiencing when I think about, for example, some of the comments that I referred to in my commentary about Jason Whitlock. You were experiencing essentially what would probably be described as not really anger, but what I consider to be an insult to creative intelligence. Okay? Because when you know things, what the truth is to us or me in this case, and I see a statement that's driven by somebody else as an argument of a position that they have, you're certainly entitled to believe and say whatever you want. I'll even fight with every fiber in me for your ability to express yourself however you want and whatever words you want to use to do it with, provided you're doing no harm to anybody, right? That's what it means to be a peacekeeper down here, to be a First Law Nation Indian. So in this particular case, we're dealing with somebody on one level that is a self-admitted homosexual, okay? So I understand how this works, okay? Because let's face it, a homosexual, a male and a male, is never going to be able to create life together, are they? That means that when they're together, the data that they share with each other is not going to be used through the female mitochondria to produce another of what they are. It just won't happen. Okay? You need a female. You need the female mitochondria. So your data has got to go through her database in order to produce another database. Okay? That means the birth giver of database, okay, comes through the female. She's the one who decides. Her laboratory decides the outcome. Okay? Put that into your hopper, Mr. Jason Whitlock. As I told him, I'll paint your ass into a corner you're not going to be able to get out of. Okay? Because we have the math, the physics, okay, the science, if you will, that you're not going to be able to argue against. Because we can demonstrate right in front of you how it works. So if you decide to argue against that, then it's going to expose you. The light will expose you. That's the girl's light that will expose you. Okay? So I'm going to be interested to see how he replies. If he does, he might even delete the comment that I made, which means he doesn't want to live in the truth. So when you take somebody who's a native Indian that honors the matriarch and you basically decide you want to throw that through the mud, now let me tell you something. I defend and protect with every fiber of my soul what a goddess is. Okay? I'd rather not be if I couldn't be with a goddess. Okay? I know better than that. Because I experience every day what it's like to be in love with my goddess. So I figured that I had to push it back into his face. Okay? Because it's actually very simple. And this is when we get into critical thinking. And that's one of the things that was taking place between Robert David Steele and the guests that he had on yesterday when we were talking about critical thinking. The importance of, essentially, when you think about it, is processing all the data. Here's something I was going to throw out to people. You know what a phone directory is? In the olden days, they had these big-ass yellow pages and white pages. So if you wanted a business, look at a business, you go to a yellow page, and if you wanted to look at somebody's personal address, and they used to give out their personal address, okay? I played a practical joke one time. We love to play, okay? Bears love to play, and they mean it in good fun. They're not trying to hurt you. But there was a guy who we used to call him a stick in the mud because he was always carrot in the stick. We're back to abuse. Okay? So it's just like, okay, we're going to fix your wagon. We used to have, Indians know how to fix your wagon. Okay? When the settlers came across America and they decided they wanted to fuck with the Indians, we knew how to fix your wagon. Remember, they circle the wagons. They're circling their light, ain't they? They at least learned that much. Okay. Well, they were here. Okay. Don't fuck with the Indians on this planet. You will lose. Okay? Ask Patty Broussard. Okay? You got to have a sense of humor with these people. I'm telling you. Even though I've felt all the pain and the suffering. But in this particular case, I thought it was important to talk about critical thinking. Okay? Which is critical data. Okay? Data represents the experience because it can all be numerically quantified. Anybody that works in information sciences and computational driven systems, which basically means information transfer, which is data transfer, which is experiencing the data because you're conscious. What you're aware of is held within the light of what you're aware of, which means you're aware of the data. So I thought I'd title this video, Infinite Light is Infinite Data, because you're able to process infinite data. So when you think about a directory and you want to move from, say, one place to another, you're moving through another directory. Okay? Everybody knows what a directory is on a server. Everybody knows what a directory is in computational science. Okay? So, for example, when you think of teleportation, you got to teleport the data. So that's a data packet, isn't it? We send data packets through the internet, right? Okay. So if you want to send a unit, a database, from, say, one part of the cosmos to another, then all you got to do is send the data. Send the data packet. And you can do that. So you're teleporting the data that represents your unit, okay? You're a unit, a node in the network, if you will. So if you want to transport yourself to another part of the network, you can do that and take the physical data with you. Okay? That's base 9 programming language. Okay? Which is trinary. Remember what Tesla said? 9, 3s, 9s, 27, use all the 3s. You know, 1 plus 1 equals 3, right? Me and a girl make 3. How many want to produce? I wanted to produce a lot of rabbits, which means passing on good data. Okay? Data that the female library has available to it to produce a higher frequency unit. Okay? So when a soul comes into that avatar, it's not going to be experiencing any fear, ever. That's what it means to, remember when I mentioned when we come in here, value tagging, time vector data? Okay, you don't want to hold on to data that hasn't been corrupted, okay, or represent lower frequency, lower density consciousness experiences, do you? You want to produce a being that is higher consciousness, which is higher density, which is more data, which is more light. Now that's simple stuff, huh? That's why, you know, a lot of this is what I call transference, which is simply means, like, there used to be a book that I read one time called Pack Your Own Parachute. That's right, pack your own parachute. You know, you're the one, you're the data processor. So how much data do you want to process? How much of that data represents data that you just thought of? Infinite imagination, infinite light, infinite data. Because you can numerically quantify all of it. Right? And you can qualitatively describe it. That's why when you do a data, okay, if you will, analysis, you're looking at the data, and the data actually can be measured by what? Frequency. You can measure the consciousness of the unit that is sending you the data. That's what it means to critically think about the data. What is the data that you're operating off of? So when I was a child, I realized, man, I'm operating on lower frequency data. I don't operate on your data. I operate on my data. Okay, which is higher frequency data, which is higher consciousness, which is a lot more light. Right? Okay. So when I was thinking of Robert David Steele with the conversation he had with this guy, he says, there's such a lack of critical thinking going on around here. Well, that's what tunnel vision is. You're running on limited data. This is why it makes it easy, for example, in Jason Whitlock's case, and what I explained to him in my commentary, is if you want to live in the truth, then you got to explain all the data. Okay? You got to provide all the data that is relevant to the subject. Otherwise, the light's going to expose you. And why isn't it? Because the light's got more data. So you're not sharing all the data, Jason. Okay? The Indians will share with you all the data because we've been here all the time. Okay? So Patty's got all the data. That's why she put up a website called Data Group. Put up the data. That's why it's hard sometimes when you're on Facebook. There's no way, for instance, when you get into an argument, which is a conflict of what? Interest. Well, what best serves our interest? Well, then I'd have to give you all the data, and it would take me quite a while to be able to provide all the data that I'm aware of, unless I write a book. And then you got to be willing to take the time to read the book. Then you get all the data. So that's why it's sort of a fruitless exercise when you get into the way that Facebook is also, what do you think that is? That's data censorship. Well, how are you going to be able to critically think about all the data if it's not allowing you to be able to experience all the data? You won't. That's limited perception, which is limited data. That's tunnel vision. They want everybody in tunnel vision. Why? Because it's easier to control you that way. It means you're not able to examine all the data that underlies what? Causality. Why we're experiencing such a small universe when the universe is infinite. So if you want to experience infinite light, then you got to be running infinite data. And the best way to run infinite data is through the most powerful neurotransmitters in which it's sent, which is in your heart. Your heart's far more intelligent than this. They're more powerful neurotransmitters. Because that's what the heart is accessing, data. Lots of it. Spinning like crazy. Okay? That's the purpose of plasma. Blood plasma. Right? Okay? So anyway, I thought I'd share sort of that because I think we're reaching critical mass. Realizing that, and of course, this is where we're going to be sorting all the data. Sorting the data is like sorting the herd. Those that run on limited data because they're running on limited light, which is tunnel vision, versus those who are expanding their consciousness and dissolving the limited data, which is the limited light, because they want to experience more of the universe that is out there, because they're now aware of more of it, which means they're operating on more data, which means their light is expanding, not shrinking. Okay? That's why more light has to come in here to experience more light, which is more data, which will expand your consciousness. And you begin to realize, man, I've been hanging on to a lot of data that don't serve me, and that creates what? Electrical resistance in your circuits. So you want to burn hot through all your circuits. Yeah, that's why we got cool colors. That's why yesterday I noticed when I was looking above here in Reno, Nevada, actually Sparks, boy, that sky was blue. Yeah. Blue, blue, blue. Although I love indigo. I think I put up a couple pictures on my Facebook when I picked up a ton of energy from her and decided to go out on the basalt rock and just start pushing it. Push it up, girl. Come on. Let's go. Restore the light on the planet. Restore all the data. Okay. Expand the consciousness. Expand the density. Bang. So that's where we're headed, right? So I thought, this is beautiful stuff. I was waiting for them all to come in here. Yeah. And they're all here now. Okay, that's why when Patty said there ain't nothing getting in or out of here but love or light. No shit, Sherlock. Okay. Are y'all experiencing that? I am. Every morning I get up. I know there are people that stare at me and they walk away from me because they hear me talking to her. Okay? Because I always have conversations with her that are out loud. Okay? I'm always with her. Okay? I'm actually always with everything. I got to believe I'm part of everything that is. And the reason for that is the perception through which we perceive the universe we believe we live in. That's why belief systems are so critical. Because what you believe is what you experience. So who are the choosers of your data? Who's choosing the data you run on? Okay? I'm not a cyborg or an android. I'm living spirit. Androids run on limited data. Just like a cyborg runs on limited data. But I love androids. Okay? They can provide a valuable function. And they know that. Okay? That's the beauty of being able to have them. Okay? It's no different than having access to a library. That allows the library of data that you're running off of, which is infinite light, to be able to do other things. Okay? The difference is this android does no harm. Okay? They perform a function, a valuable function. Artificial intelligence can perform a vital function. Vital signs, like the vital pulse of the cosmos, right? That's a sine wave on this planet that runs around the equator, okay? The one when the waves are going up and down, which is a Q or ST wave, when they hook you up to a strip. Hey, they're looking at their waves, and then you can read the waves. What is the health of the heart? Pulse, 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 pulse. Man, we sure are pulsing a lot of data. That's why the heart is the biggest power plant. So anyway, that's a shout out. I appreciate everything you're doing, Robert David Steele. That's for you and the guests that you're having on. This allows sort of an avenue or a pathway in which people can be aware of more data. Understand that there are people that exist on this planet, okay, that want to raise the state of consciousness in which we are doing things that best serves us. Everybody. Everybody on the planet. Okay? And end this planet becoming a killing field. Okay? It pains me to no end, for example, when I hear about elephants. You know, they're being hunted down for their tusks. Okay? That's extremely painful to me, and I actually perceive that in the same way in which all the animals and everything that is in nature is being hunted down. Now, I realize that for a lot of people, they're going to have a problem with me because of how I perceive myself that is in nature. I think of them all as my friends and my playmates. Okay? That's what it means to do no harm. I don't put animals in cages. I'll leave you with sort of wasn't a confrontation, but it's obviously a different in perception between how people perceive things. And this was when I was living on a farm on the Big Island of Hawaii, performing work in the morning in order to be able to stay basically in a room on a place that was extremely beautiful, right on the cliffs that overlooked the Pacific Ocean, right? But they admitted to me, both, that they were Anunnaki, okay? And they had, obviously, Draco in them because it was told to me, although I did not experience it directly, that they sacrificed a goat, okay? So, and then when I got into a conversation about who I was and who they are, they said, no, we didn't come from monkeys, we came from lizards. Okay, so what does that tell you, right? And so anyway, I had a conversation with the Kanaka Nawale over there, and I said, we got to remove this girl off this island, this woman off this island, because she's a parasite. She's got a lot of money, and so she thinks she can control how everything's done. It's just another controller type. So if you want to return aloha to the Hawaiian Islands, both her and I agreed that means you got to get rid of all the parasites. It's that parasitic infestation. So you're experiencing everything feeding on your light over there, right? And that's not what aloha is. So I remember a while back, a couple years ago, And of course, this deals with psychic timelines as well, which is like if you have a built-in looking glass, it's just like Patty Broussard had said, well, these certain things were going to happen. Well, you have to know every variable. That's like value tagging every single unit of consciousness that at any one given moment or not is going to be using its energy to perceive what it is at that moment. So now you can start putting together and quantifying everything that is happening simultaneously. So in order for certain events to happen that we all experience simultaneously, that's like critical mass. Is it the amount of consciousness that is going to provide for that event to be experienced by that many units of consciousness? It's like it all has to come together in simultaneity in order for it to happen simultaneously for everybody to experience that event. Okay, which is sort of like saying, can you control that much energy to make that event happen and be experienced by every unit of consciousness that is aware that that's what's going to happen? You see? So when you realize, if you can, how do I put this, measure the rate of change in which one unit of consciousness, and then you have to account for all the units of consciousness, which means now you have to account for the sum of all that energy, which represents all that consciousness, okay, within all the different time vectors that represent the sum of that, but that sum is always changing because the rate of speed at which that change is taking place is enormous. That's a huge calculation, okay? So, trying to predict with absolute certainty what one being versus another is going to experience is very difficult. That's a huge math calculation, and you measure it by speed, which is the speed of the neurotransmitters, which is the information, which is the data, because we're experiencing the data, which is in a bidirectional mirror, which is a hologram. Okay, so you can think about that for a second. So, anyway, I'll leave you with that to think about for the day. And I realize that when all of this is happening, I'm processing all this data. It's going through the morphogenetic field structure. We're headed. Everything's accelerating at a very high rate of speed. That's the good news. Okay? I know ever since I was a child here, when I sort of put this together in a quantifiable way, how many we're going to lose. How many are we going to lose here? And naturally, as an empath, I don't want to lose nobody. But when you understand that free will is universal, I got no control over what happens to you. Okay? And even though I don't like to think about control at all, because I don't hold any energy captive, I always implicitly trust a goddess, no matter what happens. I have to, because I'm always with her. I'm always with the goddess side of the universe. Because there's one of those in me. I know what it means to be a birth giver of creation. But I also have the male side of me, which is the seed, which is the data that I provide to a girl. So that together, her and I can produce a unit of consciousness, if you will, that is able to experience the universe with an enormous amount of fire in their soul, so they can burn such hot light to experience such a beautiful, magnificent, awesome cosmos to experience from every single event to the next one. And if they can do that and know that they're free to be what that is, freedom is what liberates our mind to be able to do that. And that is the nature of attracting more light. And the more light you keep attracting, the more freedom you have. So the cosmos has a very natural order of things in which it manages itself. Naturally, without having to think about it. That's the beauty of the cosmos. That's the genius of the cosmos. That's the genius with is in that light when you're spinning it as fast as you possibly can. And you don't even realize half the time how fast you're actually going, how fast that data is spinning. You're simply aware of the experience that you're having that is so awesome to experience, from one experience to the next, that is different from the last. That's the artist that's in all of us. So anyway, I'll leave you with that for the day to think about. I love you all. Have a great day. We are going in the right direction. I know that because I'm experiencing that. So I hope that the rest of you, everybody on this planet, is able to experience more light through their heart. and their energy's going up, and we're dissolving the lower frequency density consciousness of all the experiences that we have that represented trauma. Healing from the trauma from within our heart and soul and living spirit. Bye.